Joined here by my colleagues, Mr. Anupam Agarwal, Chief Corporate Finance, Mr. Rajiv Kumar, Chief Corporate Accounts and Financial Reporting Services, Mr. Binod Hallan, CGM Finance, Mr. Rajrishi Gupta from Corporate Planning and Strategy, Mr. Sanjay Bharti from Corporate Accounts, Mr. Nirmal Kumar and Mr. Chandrasekhar from ONGC Videsh, and Mr. Prakash Joshi from Investor Relations. ONGC has compiled its financial results for the quarter ended 31st December 2020, which have been reviewed by statutory auditors. The financial results have already been released on 13th of February 21 through a press note and sent to stock exchanges. These have also been sent to the analysts who are there on our mailing list. Here is a brief synopsis of the results. The company has earned a net profit, that is profit after tax, of rupees 1,378 crore during the third quarter of FY21 as against rupees 4,226 crore during the third quarter of FY20. This is a decrease of rupees 2,848 crores, and in percentage terms this is roughly one-third, meaning thereby that this is a reduction of around two-thirds. Similarly, profit after tax for the 9-month period FY21 has also decreased by rupees 11,791. This again is a reduction of 71% or so from the profit after tax of 16,543 crore in 9-month FY20 to this year's 9-month figure of rupees 4,752 crores. The decrease in net profit during the current quarter and 9-month period is mainly on account of lower sales revenue, lower crude price as well as gas realization, and lower other income. The sales revenue for third quarter of FY21 has decreased by rupees 6,645 crores. That's a reduction of 28%. And it is at rupees 16,977 crore as against rupees 23,622 crores in the corresponding quarter of the previous fiscal. The sales revenue in the current quarter has decreased mainly on account of lower sales revenue from crude oil by rupees 3,992 crore, natural gas revenue by rupees 2,053 crore, and lower sales revenue from value-added products by rupees 705 crore. So if you really look at, ONGC has suffered lower revenue because of the lower price realizations on all three fronts: crude oil, natural gas, as well as value-added products. There is a reduction in Government of India share of profit petroleum by rupees 105 crore from rupees 515 crore in Q3 FY20 to rupees 410 crore in Q3 of this fiscal. The decrease is mainly at RJON 90/1 block by rupees 87 crore and PMT-JV by rupees 31 crore. Similarly, sales revenue in 9-month period has also decreased by rupees 27,703 crores. That's a reduction of 37% from rupees 74,461 crore in 9 months of previous fiscal to rupees 46,758 crore in 9-month period of current fiscal. The sales revenue in 9 months has been lower mainly on account of, again, the reasons are very similar, on account of decrease in sales revenue from crude oil by rupees 19,316 crore, natural gas revenue by rupees 6,232 crores, and lower sales revenue from value-added products by rupees 2,746 crore. There is reduction in Government of India share of profit petroleum by rupees 591 crore from 1463 crore in 9 months of previous fiscal to 872 crores in 9 months of this fiscal. The decrease is mainly at RJON 90/1 block, CBOS2 and PMT-JB block by rupees 283 crore, rupees 218 crore and rupees 83 crore respectively. The billing net of VAT and CST for crude during the third quarter of current fiscal was at rupees 43.20 per barrel as against dollar. So this figure was in dollars, and as against dollar 59.3 per barrel in the same period in the last year. That's a decrease of $16.53 per barrel, and in percentage terms, this is a reduction of 28% or so. The exchange rate of rupee versus dollar, which has actually partly, helped retain or helped positively the revenues, stood at 73.74 per dollar, rupees 73.74 per dollar versus 71.23 per dollar in the third quarter of FY20. Thus, realization for crude in rupee terms stood at rupees 3,186 per barrel in Q3 FY21, vis-a-vis rupees 4,255 per barrel in Q3 of this previous fiscal, which amounted to decrease of 25.1% or so. So it means that whatever was the reduction in oil prices, actually to the extent of weakening of Indian rupee, there is an abating effect by around 3% or so. Similarly, gross billing for crude during the first 9 months of current fiscal stood at US dollar 37.74 per barrel as against US dollar 62.08 per barrel in the same period of last year. That's a substantial decrease of USD 24.34 per barrel, and in percentage terms, this is close to 40% reduction. The exchange rate of rupee versus dollar stood at 74.63 versus rupees 70.38 in the first 9 months of previous fiscal. Thus, realization of crude in rupee terms stood at rupees 2,816 per barrel in 9-month period of this fiscal versus rupees 4,369 per barrel in 9-month period of previous fiscal, which amounted to a decrease of 35.6% in INR terms. So again, the weakening rupee has actually provided some sort of comfort by around 3.5%. During Q3 FY21, the statutory levies stood at rupees 4097 crore as against rupees 5,667 crore in Q3 of previous fiscal. That's a decrease of rupees 1,570 crores, and in percentage terms, this is about 28%. The decrease in royalty on crude oil, rupees 666 crore, and cess by 663 crore, is mainly attributable to decrease in average selling price of crude oil from 31,899 rupees per MT in Q3 of FY20 to 23,928 in Q3 of 21. Similarly, there has been decrease in royalty on natural gas by rupees 225 crore on account of decrease in price of natural gas from rupees 9,650 per 1,000 cubic meter in Q3 of FY20 to rupees 5,763 per 1,000 cubic meter in Q3 of FY21. Similarly, the statutory levies have also decreased by rupees 6,750. That's a reduction of 38%. From rupees 17,764 crore in 9 months of previous fiscal to 11,014 crore in 9-month period of this fiscal. The decrease in royalty on crude, rupees 3,032 crore, and cess by almost a similar amount of rupees 3,093 crore is mainly attributable to decrease in average selling price of crude oil from rupees 32,708 per MT in 9-month period of FY20 to rupees 21,110 per MT in 9-month period of this fiscal. Similarly, there has been decrease in royalty on natural gas by rupees 680 crores on account of decrease in price of natural gas from rupees 10,320 per 1,000 cubic meter in 9-month period of FY20 to rupees 6,748 per 1,000 cubic meter in 9 months of FY21. The operating expenditure has decreased by rupees 1,028 crore. That's a reduction of 18% from rupees 5,604 in Q3 of previous fiscal to rupees 4,576 crore in Q3 of this fiscal. The decrease in Q3 FY21 is mainly on account of decrease in consumption of materials, rupees 174 crore, mainly at the Dahej plant, which this alone contributed around 146 crore out of that 174 crore which I alluded to this just now, on account of decrease in prices of spot LNG. Repair maintenance reduction is rupees 233 crore, water injection 118 crore, transport and of oil and gas expense 108 crore, mainly at Mumbai offshore, and manpower expenditure has come down by 105 crore or so. This reduction in operating expenditure has been partly offset by increase in workover expenditure by rupees 99 crore due to increase in number of workover wells, which more jobs were taken during this year than the previous fiscal, similar period in the previous fiscal. Similarly, operating expenditure in 9-month period of this fiscal has also decreased by rupees 2,048. That's a reduction of 13.4% from rupees 15,311 crore in 9-month period of 20 to 13,263 in 9 months of this fiscal. The reduction in 9-month FY21 is on account of decrease in consumption of material, mainly at the Dahej plant, and the explanation for the same is very similar to what I gave for 3-month period, which is actually the reduction in spot prices. Repair and maintenance 464 crore, water injection 225 crore, mainly at Mumbai offshore, and manpower expenses by rupees 232 crores. Due to major superannuation separation last year and decrease in other staff-related expenses. Finance cost has decreased by rupees 148 crore, that is a reduction of 23.6% from rupees 626 crore in Q3 FY20 to 478 crore in Q3 FY21. Similarly, the finance cost has also decreased by rupees 667 crore, that's a reduction of 34.1% from 1954 crore in 9-month period of 20 to 1287 in 9-month 21. This decrease is mainly on account of decrease in short-term loans, the lower rates realized on account of commercial papers, and unbinding of discounts on decommissioning liability. In fact, this whole situation has emerged both because of the base is low, our borrowings are lower, as well as the rate at which we have borrowed are significantly lower. So we have benefited from the prevailing low interest regime on account of two factors. One is that we have converted most of our short-term loans into long-term loans, and also have locked in much lower interest rates than what we had experienced last year. There is an increase of rupees 121 crore, that is roughly around 7% in exploration cost written off, survey and unsuccessful well cost in Q3 of FY21, that is rupees 1,718 crore in Q3 FY20 has gone up to 1839 crore in Q3 of FY21. This increase is mainly due to increase in seismic data acquisition activity at Western Offshore and AAFB, and this needs to be seen in context of the prevailing constraints we had due to COVID. You would realize that notwithstanding the challenges of COVID, we had not only continued our activity level, but wherever it was possible, we actually increased the activity. However, during 9-month FY21, there is a decrease in exploration cost written off, survey and unsuccessful well cost by rupees 1,234 crore. That's a reduction of 22% or so, from rupees 5,645 crore in 9-month period of previous fiscal to rupees 4,411 crore in 9-month period of this fiscal. The decrease is mainly due to decrease in unsuccessful well cost by rupees 1,051 crore. DD&I cost for Q3 FY21 stood at rupees 4,427 crore as against rupees 5,302 crore in Q3 FY20, a decrease of rupees 875 crore, that is roughly around 16% or so. The decrease in DD&I is mainly due to decrease in depletion by rupees 1,326 crore. The decrease has been partially offset by increase in depreciation by rupees 146 crore, mainly at Mumbai offshore, due to increase in ROU assets, and that is a direct consequence of implementation of Ind AS 116, and increase in impairment loss by 305 crore. Similarly, there is also a decrease of rupees 1,689 crore, 12.4% in DD&I cost during 9-month FY21, from rupees 13,618 crore in 9-month FY20 to rupees 11,929 crore in 9-month of FY21. The decrease in 9-month period of this fiscal is mainly attributable to a decrease in depletion by rupees 1,968 crore. The decrease in depletion is mainly at Mumbai offshore fields by rupees 1,802 crore due to upgradation of reserves, and Panna Mukta JV rupees 402 crore due to closure of the JV. The decrease has been partially offset by increase in depletion by rupees 372 crores due to downgradation of reserves at Assam asset. This has been partially offset by increase in depreciation of rupees 292 crores from rupees 2605 crore in 9-month period of FY20 to 2,897 crore in 9-month period of FY21. The increase is mainly attributable to increase in depreciation at Mumbai offshore by rupees 211 crore due to increase in ROU asset. There is an increase in exchange gain by rupees 662 crore from an exchange loss of rupees 226 crore in Q3 of FY20 to exchange gain of 436 crore in Q3 of FY21. Similarly, there is an increase in exchange gain by rupees 1,419 crore from an exchange loss of 564 crores in 9-month FY20 to exchange gain of rupees 855 crore in 9 months of FY21. Now, corporate tax provision of rupees 1,433 crore in Q3 21 has been provided as compared to 1828 crore in Q3 of FY20. Actually, this particular item does contain a one-off kind of thing. The effective tax rate of Q3 is 51.15% versus previous fiscal figure of 30.18%, and applicable tax rate 34.94%. This is attributable to, as I said just now, is mainly on account of tax provision for earlier years amounting to rupees 506 crore towards Vivad Se Vishwas. So there is a similar corresponding effect in 9-month period also, where the effective tax rate for 9-month period is 38.40%, 40%, as compared to 31.81%. This again, I mean, same reason. So the tax shown in the books would appear to be somewhat higher. So I thought I'll give this explanation. Well, friends, with this I finish my briefing of the third quarter results of financial year 2021. We'll be very happy to take questions from you. We would request you to restrict your queries on financial results only. Before I hand over, actually, I'd like to share two things which were covered in the press. One is that ONGC has decided to have its wholly owned subsidiary for the purposes of marketing gas, and we have also taken in principle decision to take 5% equity in IGX. Now, both these things actually gel well with the government's ambition to transition towards a gas-based economy. Honorable Prime Minister has shown his ambition and has asked different bodies to come up with action plan to see that the gas share in economy increases from current 6% to 15%. We, as ONGC, are very advantageously placed to benefit from the whole scenario, because besides having stake in all kinds of gas within the country, because we are there in nominated fields, we are there in NELP, pre-NELP, HPHT, but not only that, we have stakes in downstream processing plants through PLL. We also have upcoming potential projects in regas through HPCL in Chhara terminal. And besides that, actually, ONGC Videsh has taken sizable stake in overseas projects. So I think as far as coming years are concerned, the story of gas is going to unfold, which is going to be critical to the sustained positive performance of the company. IGX similarly, you would have noticed that IEX has been a tremendous success in the country, and IGX is very well positioned to benefit from that, and we have had intention to join the same over the past few months, and we have taken that decision in principle. We will be activating that. You would have also noticed in renewables also we had announced last quarter or so that we have decided to come up with joint venture with NTPC. So these are some of the things, the benefits of which we will reap over the years. So with that, I hand over for the questions and answers. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Thanks for the wonderful presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the Q&A session. If you wish to ask any question, please press 01 on your telephone keypad and wait for your line to be unmuted. Yeah, so the first question coming from the line, name as Navisa Gupta, Bank of America. Your line is open. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Good morning, sir, and thank you again for the detailed financials. Sir, my question is on the status of the KG 98/2 basin, firstly on the gas production and also on oil production. There are some media reports suggesting that the FPSO contractor has declared force majeure. So what kind of delays are we expecting out of that?
So, a couple of comments. One is that the project is going on well. COVID has actually created quite a few disruptions, and as a consequence of which there was difficulty. So more than actually Indian supply chain, what got affected was the international supply chain, and consequently there were difficulties for suppliers of all major pieces of there were 5 major subcontracts, sub-projects in the overall KG 98/2. FPSO was also one of them. But the situation is well under control. The production from KG 98/2 Cluster 2 has already started. It's relatively insignificant production today at around 320,000 cubic meters of gas today. But from May onwards, we believe that it will ramp up to 2.5 to 3 million cubic meters per day. So from May onwards, actually, it will be a slow ramp up of capacity, both on gas and oil front. So, and as far as specifically you said about the FPSO, there were news, but at the end of the day, all contractors are working to meet their kind of timelines. So that progress is happening at the work front, and some of these disruption in international supply chain are also a reason why in the previous conference call and today I'm not kind of specifically committing to specific dates on which or exact levels of production will be at. 21 is more than likely to happen. Thank you.
Got it, sir. Thank you. And sir, on my second question, just on this, on your initiatives on the gas front, the subsidiary and the equity participation in IGX, does that in any way hint at free pricing of gas very soon? Because as I understand, IGX, that domestic gas is out of the purview of IGX to begin with. So are we looking at like free pricing soon, and what has happened on the gas pricing bit?
So for actually hints, we rely more on people like you who sense the environment more than us. But on a serious note, I believe that government has come out with policy initiatives to transition towards a gas-based economy. There is government has taken a number of steps, and I believe that it is only a matter of time by which the gas prices will be, the anomaly in gas prices for the nomination periods will be set right. Now, what shape and size that kind of increase, consequential increase in the prices we realize takes, that's a matter of time, and future will unfold exactly what we'll get. But it is pretty likely that there will be a better regime which gives us at least remunerative price. And when I talk of remunerative price, frankly speaking, it has been in public domain that our cost of production of gas is in the range of around 350 to 370, depending on exchange rate and contribution from a particular field in a given year. And if one were to build actually the cost of investment, so it would be to the north of $5 per MMBTU. So those are the kind of rates, the cost levels at which we are. I am not no way hinting that these are the levels we are likely to get, but these are some of the references we have in mind. We read the same press. I believe there was some committee probably given its report, and it should be under active consideration. But it is entirely consistent, and there is no reason not to expect that the gas prices will be revised.
So just last thing from me, any tentative timelines on this? Will it happen before April? Will it not happen before April? Anything on that?
No, I'm not the one to give the timelines. There's no way, because it's not within my control. I wish it were yesterday.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nafis sir. The next question is the line from Amit Rastogi, UPS Securities. Your line is open. Please go ahead.
Thank you, sir, and thanks for making a quite detailed. Sir, could you give us an update on the performance of OPaL? What is happening there, and are we consolidated with us, and what is happening with the capital raise in that company as well?
So actually, I mean, consolidated. So let me actually also take this opportunity, because one thing I did not highlight in the call was much better performance by all the entities in the group. Actually, you have specifically talked about OPaL, but I'll take opportunity to also cover a few others. Just give me a minute.
Sure,
so
sir.
OPaL actually has done well, and during the 9-month period, if you really see, OPaL was only one of the two plants which have continued operating during this period. The OPaL has, for the most period of the last year, operated towards the last 3 months or so, is operating close to 100% capacity. Its problem continues to be a highly leveraged capital structure, because it is predominantly funded by debt, and there has been much less equity infusion. And the 9-month performance, its losses have reduced significantly from 832 crores during the previous 9-month period to 529. And this is, you have to actually factor in two adverse consequences. One is, of course, the impact of COVID, where it did operate, but operated at less than around 50% capacity for some period of the year. And secondly, since it's an SEZ unit, when it sells its products in domestic market, actually it invites custom duty. So, notwithstanding that, the plant has both on operational as well as on financial front performed significantly better. So, in our group, actually, the losses of Power Enhance Limited have reduced. MSC Z is doing well comparatively. It is similar performance to last year. DSL is positive. OTPC has done almost their 9-month period profit was 46 crore previous fiscal, which is 85, so almost 100% improvement. And so all have done well. OVL, the HPCL profits during the 9-month period is significantly higher. MRPL profits are lower. So this is the overall story. So not only ONGC has been stress tested and come out with good performance despite the COVID. Actually, the whole group has turned out better performance. ONGC numbers are lower. But given the constants, it stands, its business, context stands tested. All others have actually turned out much better performance than the 9 months of previous fiscal. So thanks for the question. That actually gives me an opportunity to clarify on some of other entities also.
Yeah, thanks, sir. And sir, my second question relates to, can you give us a target for the next year production for both oil and gas?
Production target.
So, see, this year we are likely to finish in the range of, as far as oil is concerned, around 22 to 22 and a half. Gas around 22.8 to 23. That is the likely production for this year. And so value-added products will be also similarly affected. For next year, the oil we anticipate to be 23 MMT or so, 22.971 to be specific. That's the number I have in front of me. Gas, we will go back to 25. So that's the likely around 48 in terms of OEG. That is likely level of production next year. Value-added products also will be at a very similar level of 3.3 to 3.5 or so.
And sir, could you explain the capital structure for OPaL, and are we consolidating it? And what is the plan to raise capital? This was actually part of my first question.
So actually, if you recall, the paid-up capital of OPaL is 2,022 crore, which consists of some 29 crores contributed by GSPC, 995 by OPaL, by GAIL, and 998 by ONGC. So as a result of which our equity percentage is less than 50%, and it is a joint venture. And, it's jointly managed by us, and GAIL is also associated, and they are also represented on the board. So the equity is just 2,022. The total cost of plant is to the north of around 30,000 crores. The rest of it is funded through either CCDs or the debt. So even CCDs are interest bearing. Though from a very technical point of view, there are CCDs of 7,778 crores, but they carry rate of interest. So consequently, virtually everything other than this equity of 2,022 crores and some bonds. We have contributed around 1,908 crores. Rest everything is interest bearing. So 4,000 crores roughly is non-interest bearing and rest is all interest bearing, which is what I was mentioning that is resulting in a huge interest burden on the company.
But in the current environment, when the interest rates are low, I think it has a case for turning around because the profitability on some of the gas-based crackers is right now supernormal. And if you look at the realizations across Europe and Asia, they are much higher than the Indian realizations. So I don't know why we are forcing ourselves to sell only to domestic market while it's an SEZ unit. Because if you look at European relations, they are around $1,700 on LLD. So which is like one of the best case relations which we'll ever get in the history.
So Amit, actually you raised a good point. This industry is very cyclical, and we are very advantageously placed. We are on the coast. So as and when the situation improves on either fronts, we take benefit of that, and Q3 is a reflection of that, where our EBITDA is in excess of, if I remember correctly, I may be wrong by 1 or 2, percentage points. I think it is around 23-24% as far as OPaL is concerned, which may be considered very healthy looking at the history of OPaL's performance. We are looking at the economics of sales, and as and when opportunity presents it, we do use both the markets. So today we are advantageously placed as a SEZ unit. We would love to export as much as possible, but also we are preparing for a scenario where government has taken initiative for Atmanirbhar Bharat, and luckily offtake for these products in India has also improved. Our realization and margins even in India are strong because even Indian prices are not entirely detached from international prices. So, and third quarter performance is a reflection of that. So you're right, the cycle seems to have turned a bit in favor of petrochemicals. Previous cycle has been much shorter. Same is true of OMPL. We believe and we are keeping our fingers crossed that this time we have a little longer cycle to our advantage and we capitalize on that.
Okay.
And
thanks
as far
a lot,
as interest rate, as you also alluded to lowering interest rates, yes, you're right. We did replace some of the CCDs, one tranche of CCDs, whose all-in cost was 9.13% earlier, with the all-in cost of 7.02%. So we did get the 211 basis point reduction in the interest rates in OPaL in one of these CCDs. And we are conscious of it. We are managing, as we had said, that on a longer term, we have a much better plans for how OPaL and OMPL integrate into the overall value chain of the company.
Okay, sir. Thanks a lot for answering my questions and best of luck, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and please have a nice day.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, Mr. Amit. And before moving on to the next question, requesting to each and every individual, please press 01 on your keypad to ask any question you may have. So the next question coming from Sabri Hazarika, MK Global. The line is open.
Yes, good morning, sir. Thank you for the opportunity.
Morning.
I just wanted to know what would be your standalone debt as on December 2020 end?
It's lower than what figure we have on 31st of March 2020. It was 12,860 crores as on 31st of December. So 31st March was 13,949, and now it is 12,860. Today it is again you can take 1,000 crores less, roughly.
Right, and
Our standalone debt equity ratio has come down to around 6%, and group debt equity ratio is of the order of around 45-46%. So with each successive quarter, we have been able to arrest the figure.
Correct, sir. Thank you. And secondly, what has been the 9 months capex and guidance for this year and next year, now that oil prices also up?
So capex actually, if you really recall, our budget was 32,502. And when COVID started, we started reviewing as to what it would be even practically feasible. Because let me clarify a couple of things, because there could be need to clarify a fact or two. One is that ONGC per se over the last 10-12 years, of which I have very strong memories, has never constrained any activity because of the lack of availability of funds. It has never happened in the past. It has not happened when we had the highest debt in 2018, and it is unlikely to happen anytime soon because our fundamentals remain very strong. However, our debt has remained, our capital spending has remained anywhere between 27,000 crore to 30,000 crores or so. Our budget for the year 21 was also of the order of 32,502. But when COVID started, we started taking a very realistic view as to what would be the likely level of expenditure. So the initial figure we came to in around May-June time frame, at the time when COVID was at its peak, and we had a fairly good sense into what was likely level of activity. We came up with a number of 26,000 crores or so, plus minus hundreds crore here and there. Subsequent to that, we realized that the country as well as the company had managed COVID quite effectively, and we had figured out ways of continuing business as usual despite the challenges of COVID. And we did at that time review and we realized that this is an opportunity to put in more capex and probably bring in more activity, as a result of which actually I also talked about our increased activity on survey, etc. If you would have noticed during my call at Mumbai. So we upgraded this figure to around 29,000 crores or so. I believe we will end up spending somewhere very close to that. It could be a figure of plus minus 5 to 10%. That's the story about 2021. 21-22 continues to be a similar story, because this is a year where we will be completing the ongoing projects and probably launching quite a few of new projects. As a result of which, actually, on the completing projects, the payments required to be made are, marginal, and for new projects, actually, you make very small payments in the beginning. So, while whatever we start during the current year, the impact will be felt in coming years. But despite that, our capex is likely to be the order of around 32,000 crores or so. So that is what we anticipate. Consistently, it has been to the north of $4 billion. We will continue to be somewhere in 4 to 4.5. Having said that, we would also look at any additional opportunity to identify and if we can expedite some of these projects. So we would not mind coming up with a midterm review should there be an opportunity to expedite some of these activities. We could take some activities in parallel where we in the past could have gone in a sequential manner. So the figure definitely for 21-22, initial figure is 31 to 32,000 crores. But probably we will end up, this could be an exceptional years where actual year-end figure could be higher. Normally we end up utilizing anywhere between 92 to 95%, or so we have been less than 100%. But 21-22 is likely to be an exception, where we could be higher than our initial estimate. So budget figure is unlikely to be a constant for starting any activity for which we would be ready with all studies. I hope I have answered your question.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for the detailed explanation. And last question is regarding your tax outlook. So you mentioned that it was around 34.94% for quarter 3 adjusted for
that is the applicable tax rate for a corporate.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So you are you looking at going to the new regime, or should we currently consider 30 this rate only for the next few years?
So that's a subject which we review probably either on a Monday or a Friday each week. Right. So either we get up and start with that review, or we sleep for the week with that last topic on the mind. I think on a serious note, actually we are very carefully considering the pros and cons. It's a matter of couple of years at best. So it could be this year or it could be next year that we'll transition. It could be 21, 22 or it could be 22, 23. It can't be delayed beyond that because we have certain legacy credits, MAT credits. It's a question of taking a view, and those MAT credits arise because of certain factors. So things are neither, white nor black. Things are at times grey. Then it becomes a matter of taking a view. Probably this year we'll have a very, very serious consideration on whether we'll transition to a lower interest rate or not. But 22, 23, and definitely it looks near certainty at this stage that we'll transition to a lower rate. But it's a work in progress. Let me caution that notwithstanding that it looks futuristic, I think it's a fair assessment of the situation on ground today.
Right, sir. Thank you so much and all the best, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Please have a nice day.
Thanks.
Thank you so much, participant. Next indication from line S. Ramesh from Nirmal Bang Institutional Securities. The line has been unmuted. Please go ahead.
Thank you and good morning. So my first thought is if you can give us the update on what is the capitalized cost in KG98 as of now?
As of now, I mean, the project was approved with $5.07 billion, but exact spending, maybe I'll request.
9,500.
So exact figure will be shared actually. I think it is somewhere around 10,000 crores, slightly less than that. But
okay, so
figure I am requesting Prakash to share with you, since you probably want a more precise number. He will share with you.
yeah, and related to that, if you can share some details in terms of how your KG P&L will move. While we understand the sensitivity in terms of your pricing and costing, we need to have some details so that we can make some estimates. So if you can share something in the lines of what will be the operating cost per MMBtu or per SCM, and what will be the profit share of the government, that will be useful.
So while I share the capex, actually I can share only that much which we have been sharing in the past. Probably it will not be possible to share the specifics on OPEX, etc. I think you can take your own view. I'm sure you have a view, and we will probably surprise you on the lower side. But other than that, specific numbers we may not share. Capex as of today is 9,785 crores. So,
okay, the second thought is if you're looking at your capex of 32,000 crores next year,
yeah.
if you work out the current year's cash flows, you get about operating cash flows for around 16,000 crores. So do you envisage any external funding for next year's capex, or are you expecting improved cash flows based on higher oil prices? What is the assumption behind your funding plan for next year?
So I think as we have shared on a couple of occasions earlier, actually at around 47 to 48, that's like $50 price and fair price for gas, which is around $3. We kind of break even in terms of cash flow at around 50 and 3. That's the number. At 55 or so, we are in a position to pay a dividend at the historical rates with the gas price of around 3. So those are the numbers. We anticipate that price range, notwithstanding the fact that today Brent is at 63, I still hold that planning case is still 45 to 55. But gas, I do anticipate a substantial uptick because our realizations are historic low. So 179, if it goes to 350 or so also, then there is a substantial upside. So if it's a function of what kind of prices we realize, depending on that, we would have a funding requirement. But one thing certain, no item of work or expenditure will stop simply because of lack of resources today. Our debt equity ratio is 0.6%. It's a wasting asset actually. It's a nice feeling as a finance person to have zero debt position, but at the end of the day, the more value is added by carrying out the E&P activity in time, because one loses a substantial value by delaying those. So we, in case required, we will use our leverage to fund the capital expenditure as and when and wherever it is.
So let me just squeeze in the last thought. So in the KG gas development project, can you give us a sense in terms of when it will actually turn EBITDA positive in next year, FY23? When do you expect that?
We don't have those numbers readily available, but see, these projects are extremely attractive, large size projects, depending on how the things unfold. Because as you would recall, even in terms of specific dates on which things will resume at scale, I have been slightly cautious in giving specific dates or specific quarters in which we will be able to come up to exact speed. But our numbers, actually, the regime is attractive enough, progressive enough, and even if there is a little bit of setback, we would actually kind of break even much earlier than if for any reason there is little delay also. Quite a bit of it gets compensated by lower sharing to be made with the government. While exact, probably we in the past have never shared the exact dates by which we will be breaking even. So consistent with that, we would have difficulty in sharing any specific information on that. But it's actually sharing, revenue sharing is based on IM. And it progressively at a very high level, it starts with 85%, and in case for any reason project gets delayed, we continue to benefit from much higher contractor share till the IM is less than 1.5. So that's the likely situation. So little underperformance in the initial phase or delay, which if at all is likely to be extremely temporary, is unlikely to affect the project economics in a big way. At the end of the day, quite a bit of impact gets abated by the lower sharing to be made by the government. So we are not unduly alarmed. We only believe that as and when this supply chain resumes, we will have better visibility on the exact timelines by which we will be able to finish the project.
Thank you very much. That was helpful. I'll join the queue.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ramesh. The next indication coming from the line, Pinaki Parikh from JP Morgan. The line has been unmuted. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much, sir. So my first question is, maybe you have addressed it and I missed it. My first question relates to the creation of the gas subsidiary. Now going forward, sir, can ONGC's gas subsidiary bid for the gas that ONGC produces, similarly to what we have seen the other gas producers subsidiary doing it and hence consuming it internally?
Yeah, I mean, very definitely. That's the prime purpose for which we have it. Actually, you see, we have a number of entities in the group already. So one of those entities could have done this task for us. What we wanted, we believe that gas is a growing business. We have pretty much every kind of gas in our basket, which nobody else in the country has. We can create a synthetic stream, which nobody else can do. We have international exposure to large projects like Mozambique, Sakhalin. We are already through our 100% subsidiary ONGC Videsh. So we have quite a bit of preparedness all around. We have stake in PLL, through which we have access to regasification. HPCL is a big partner in Chhara terminal. So all these positions are very, very advantageously. And the gas subsidiary is to consolidate this entire business possibly under one unit. and run it as a huge business profit center.
Thank you, sir. So just to clarify, sir, this the subsidiary can bid for the incremental gas produced from the deep water, not from the existing gas that is being produced from the nominated fields.
So it depends how the regimes change, transition. There were certain things with legacy oil and gas which were not possible on a yesterday basis, but are likely to happen in the future. So similarly, I mean, a lot is happening on gas front. You would have read the way things are taking shape. It's a advanced step in preparedness. Should there be a change in regime, applicable regime, we will try to capitalize on that. You are right. To start with, probably it is delta, not necessarily the 100%, which will be the scope.
Understood. So, but if the regime changes for the underlying production also, then this would help us.
Yeah, and as far as I connected with something like, say, Mozambique or Sakhalin, that is always possible for us. We don't require anybody's enablement for that.
Sure, sir. So second question is the OMPL stake sale to MRPL was approved and the transaction is completed. Sir, what would be next after this, or this is the only thing on the overall reorganization of the broader group?
No, so it's like triggering a chain. So the first step has been taken. The merger will take place sometime during this calendar year. And then will be preparedness to integrate MRPL business 100% with HPCL. So that's what I can say at this stage. That's what has been said already also. So that's what I can say. In terms of specific timelines, once we merge OMPL, at that stage we'll take a critical look on what exactly and when exactly to trigger the things. Theoretically, we would have the complete process by 23, 24 or so. But there are ways and means of preponing it if that were the requirement. I'm sure we will come out with specific timelines once we are able to merge MRPL with OMPL.
Sure, sir. And sir, lastly, more of a request. If you look at ONGC consolidated and the EBITDA and the standalone EBITDA, the difference is as much as 5,000 to 6,000 crores, or roughly 60 to 70% of standalone. Now, sir, while we focus on OVL and MRPL, there are multiple group companies where they are substantially large now in terms of size. Can we get a better walk or presentation going forward on a quarterly basis, which highlights all the other entities in the consolidated group as well, so we know how they are changing and how they are moving about?
No, we'll be very happy to do that. In fact, if you still want, if anybody is interested, we can, because if I at a very summary level for the benefit of all, see, our own profit for 9 months is 4,752. OVL is 867 crores. MRPL, which had a loss of around 1,800 crores last year, is at 999 crores loss this year, so practically half. HPCL has done phenomenally well. In fact, that's an entity which is the largest profit making, and it actually gels well with the strategic nature of this acquisition. When it was made in 2018, quite a few talks were there, but at the end of the day we have started benefiting from the integration, and HPCL profits are 7,602, and this is in 3 quarters, so one can kind of estimate what kind of numbers it is going to make in next quarter. PMHBL is profit making, small, nearly 100% owned, nearly, because there are some few shares held by some other entity, some 26,000 shares in this entity. Otherwise, 99% or so held by ONGC and HPCL equally. So that continues to be in black. It is generating profit around 38-40 crores or so. PLL 288 crores. Pawan Hans lower losses. MSCZ lower losses. OPaL Again, compared to 830 losses last 9 months, actually it is 529. DSL is in black. OTPC is nearly 100% in more than last year. IGGL and OTBL, these are small entities making some small contribution. So these are, this is the kind of situation. But you are right, actually, from next quarter onwards, we'll include a section in the, initial brief itself. That's very helpful suggestion from your side. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Parikh. So next indication coming from the line, Mayank Maheshwari from Morgan Stanley. The line has been unmuted. Please go ahead.
Thank you for the detailed presentation, sir. The question from my side was more related to the first point you had talked about in terms of investing in renewables and gas. Out of your total $4 billion, is there something you're setting aside now for these new energy kind of areas? Or is there something that the board is looking at?
So, two things. One is that as far as gas is concerned, it will not be an incremental investment. It actually, as and when we have this entity, actually it will be carrying out the same job, which today we are doing it through ONGC 100% operations, or probably it will do additionally. It could buy our volumes wherever it is feasible. So it is not additional business. It is running the same business more in a more targeted manner. As far as renewable is concerned, it will be an incremental investment. We have announced JB. We are looking at some projects. At the end of the day, actually, whatever investment we will make, right now we have a very token provision in our budget for this, but it won't be a constant. If we get a good project or good target, budget won't be a constant. And what we will look for will be obviously an opportunity of size and scale. We will not be going after smaller entities because as of today we have close to around 200 megawatt capacity. Our perspective plan requires us to scale it up to close to 5 gigawatt to 10 gigawatt. So those could be the kind of numbers. We are not in a hurry either. We are not in a hurry to do it tomorrow, but we are looking at all available opportunities set in the country.
Okay. And so this
right now within core there is not much of provision for this, but that's what I alluded to, that as and when the opportunity comes, budget won't be a constant.
Got it, sir. And so just an extension to this, like considering OVL has presence in countries outside India, is there a place where you would be looking for renewable opportunities, or you are just focusing on India right now?
So, I mean, our base case will be India, because renewables, see, whatever OVL also does theoretically, there is a possibility for those volumes to be either brought to India or to be sold there, and those revenues to be utilized for energy security in country. Probably same kind of flexibility will not be there when it is a question of renewables. In renewables, our focus will be more to invest within country and help solve the energy puzzle within the country. But if there is a great opportunity, we will not shy away. But prima facie, it's unlikely to be the kind of first thing on the radar.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Maheshwari. So next question is from Akshay Vashist from ICICI Securities. The line has been unmuted. You may please go ahead.
Hi, sir. Thank you so much for taking my question. So my question is on KG Deepwater Gas. So you just mentioned that the production has already started. Just wanted to understand when is the production expected to peak?
No, so that's what I told. I gave you two numbers. One is existing level of production, and second is in May we will be able to go to close to 3.5 MMSCMD. As far as the peaking date is concerned, that's what I would be very, cautious about committing today for the reasons we discussed earlier. but it will happen something in 2023 or 24. So that's likely scenario. But I'm myself very cautious of giving a date and then explaining in the next call if there is a delay, because as rightly pointed out by some of the other people on the call, they did say that there were certain disruptions. Yes, the international supply chain was affected adversely in a big way. So we are taking a stock, and before giving any specific dates, we want to be pretty certain. So, but timelines don't change materially. It will be somewhere in 23 or 24.
Okay, so this production is expected to ramp up to 3 to 3.5 in May this year.
Yeah.
So any number you would like to put in the production? What will the production be, let's say, next year in FY23?
So give me a minute if you specifically want it. So 21, 22 today. I mean this is a figure which you can take with plus minus 10%. 21, 22 average we anticipate to be close to 3.4 or so. 22, 23 we anticipate it to be 8.5 or so.
Okay, and in 24 it will be the peak basically.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much for that, sir. And my second question is on the gas price formula. So I reckon you mentioned that there are no particular timelines for any change in gas price formula, but I just wanted to get your sense on, let's say if the gas price formula does not change in April this year, is it possible that it won't change at all?
No, I mean two things. One is that I don't know specifics on what is happening and when it will happen. I don't believe that it will not change at all, because if you really look at a couple of days in the past, actually gas has seen huge volatility in the prices, which would have not been probably noticed by few of you. Few actually molecules have been sold at as high as more than $100 per MMBTU, and one cargo has been sold at $39 per MMBTU. Having said that, probably long-term averages are close to around 5 to 6 to 7. So it's a era of more benign gas prices than what we have seen in the past. Notwithstanding that benign level is also at least 5 to 6 times higher than what we are getting. So sooner or later, I am sure everybody who is in know of things and who deals with the issue will be aware of the urgency, and it will be addressed soon. I think customarily, since prices get revised in October and April, I do anticipate that things will happen much before that.
Sure, sir. Thank you so much. That answers my question.
Thank you, Mr. Vasist. Next, we have Manikant Tagay from Axis Capital. Your line has been unmuted. Please go ahead.
Good morning, sir. Thank you for providing me the opportunity and such a great presentation so far. So just wanted to check on the gas side again. Have you done any analysis in terms of what could be the total gas consumption across all of our business and subsidiaries currently?
So we have done it. We have done depending on what level HPCL. See, let me first identify the major consumers. So we have consumers in terms of OMPL and MRPL. OPAL is a major consumer of gas. Then we have CGDs through HPCL, and then there are refineries of HPCL. I think taken together, the level of requirement is anywhere between, on a conservative basis, 2.5 MMT to 4 or so, as on date. So these are the kind of level, and which actually translates into one expansion of any regasification terminal in India or one liquefaction plant overseas. So this gives actually a kind of size and scale. We have ready-made consumption. That's within the group. We don't have to go outside if we were to put in a capacity of this magnitude on whether on regasification or on, production side.
So just an extension to that, sir, would you have any rough estimate of how much this can go up to in the next, 3-4 years, if we have such kind of estimates?
No, I don't think with the existing operation it will change materially. And the reason for that I can count. Today, MRPL already has completed expansion phase 3. Expansion phase 4 is pretty much, while we have acquired the land, it is held up. We are taking a view on what kind of trends set on petrochemical complexes, etc. So probably phase 4 expansion is still quite some time away. So MRPL, OMPL product consumption is already at peak. OPaL also unlikely to expand it within the next 1 or 2 years. Expansion will happen at OPaL level, but more in a staged manner, and probably by that time we will have ability some of our internal gas. As far as HPCL refineries are concerned, they are taking position in Chhara terminal, and consequently they have 2 consuming large refineries. Refineries capacity is almost doubling. That you would know that 7.5 is going up to 9.5, and 7.3 is going up to 15 or so. So that is doubling. And then in addition, we also have a downstream joint venture of HPCL by the name of HMEL, where also the expansion could. So we have strong potential to consume internally. So we initial target could be consolidating our own business and then probably looking at others.
Sure,
but none of them, except for the ongoing expansion phases. So everything is expanding. Both HPCL refineries are expanding. HMEL is under major expansion phase. So beyond that, I think it will stabilize in a year or 2. Bardmer refinery is additional thing which is coming up, which obviously 3-4 years down the line, as and when it comes, will be a kind of stage increase. Other than that, there is no major increase likely.
And just 2 more questions. I just wanted to confirm the peak production at KG 98/2 is still 15 MMSCMD. Right, sir? That's the first question. And second one is, if you can throw some light, some color on the HCNG and gas to power businesses that were highlighted as part of your gas business subsidiary. What kind of investments could be there, and what do you have currently in this, in terms of the technology, and what kind of progress we have made there?
Could you repeat your question?
So the first question is the peak production at KG 98/2?
That's yes, directionally yes.
Okay. The second question is, if you can throw more color on the HCNG and gas to power businesses which were mentioned as part of the gas business subsidiary. Now, what kind of progress we have made so far, and what is the technology that we have, and what kind of timelines and investments are required here?
Okay, so 2 things actually. One is that we already have, gas to power within the group. As you would know, OTPC is a joint venture where we have 50% stake. It has 726 megawatt of production capacity. So we have a very strong presence. Actually, this entity meets around 35 to 40% of entire energy requirements of Northeast. So we know the business. We have a very strong foothold in it. So as and when possible, we can always scale up this production. As far as hydrogen part you suggested, or HCNG, both because, we have something called ONGC Energy Center, which has taken up projects and is at advanced stage in terms of figuring out as to how to commercialize some of these developments happening on hydrogen fronts. So we are in preparedness, but as and when we go, probably we will also be having some joint venture partner of established credentials internationally or nationally, so that we have, we can hit the ground running, as they say, on the day 1 basis. So it probably might happen. I'm only talking as a possibility of doing it in conjunction with somebody rather than doing it alone. But knowledge exists, preparedness exists. At prototype level, we have those experiments at ONGC Energy Center.
understand, sir. Thanks a lot for the detailed answers.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Mr. Gide.
So,
yeah, this time.
So couple of, maybe we can have,
Final.
we can have a couple of questions.
So there are no more further
Okay.
questions from the participant at this time.
Thank you very much. So I think with that,
Final statement.
thank you very much. I think we had wonderful opportunity interacting with everybody on the call. Thanks for organizing, and we look forward for similar opportunity. If anybody has any information requirement, I would reiterate an offer. Please write to IRC. You can reach me also through them. We'll be very happy to share as much detail as is possible within the ambit of rules and regulations, but we'll be very happy to receive your information requirement, because that also gives us an idea as to how to kind of prepare for the next call. So we have noted couple of points. Probably we'll incorporate, especially group performance is one thing which we noted was a request, and we'll include it from the next quarter answer. With that, thank you very much, and please have a nice day, everybody.
Thank you so much, sir, and thanks to all respected speaker and the participant. With this, we conclude the conference call for today. Thank you for joining in. Have a pleasant day ahead. Thank you so much. You may all dismiss now.
Thank you. Thank you very much.